Hey, today we're talking about the RUINOUS prayers. We're going to look at what the RUINOUS prayers were, we're going to break down the timeline of development, and we're going to look at what went wrong. And we'll find out if we are ever going to see any form of RUINOUS prayers make it into the game. This video is going to be part 1 of a 2-part series. The second video is going to focus on god alignments. We'll see why god alignments didn't make it into Wild Gothic Sleeps, and we'll look at the future of those, along with RUINOUS prayers. The first mention of the RUINOUS prayers came at the 2022 Winter Summit livestream. In this livestream, the team was showing off their planned updates for 2023. Among those updates was Desert Treasure 2, the new Grandmaster quest, and one of the major rewards from that quest was going to be the RUINOUS prayer book. Jagex described the RUINOUS prayer book as being inspired by the curses from RuneScape 3. The new prayers were going to directly supersede many of the current prayers. The team did mention that they weren't looking to just import curses from RS3 into Old School. There were going to be some similarities, but there were going to be a lot of new prayers coming. Immediately following the livestream, Jagex posted a poll asking players if they wanted to see RUINOUS prayers come into the game. Now, this initial poll didn't have any information about the prayers. This was simply to see what player interest was. That poll in January of 2023 passed with 82% favorability. Jagex got the message loud and clear that players were interested in a new prayer book. So it seems like Jagex took a little hiatus in January, and then they came back in February and asked players what would they like to see with the new prayers. Exclusively combat, mostly combat with some minor skilling perks, or a balance of combat and skilling. And surprisingly, most players did choose that they wanted the prayers to focus on a balance of combat and skilling. With this information, Jagex began development. And it would be about 2 weeks later that they came back with a lengthy blog post detailing lots of ideas that they had for the new prayer book. And they did have a lot of ideas. Originally, they came up with 22 new prayers, some being skilling, some being combat, and they pulled pretty much every single one. Some of them were combined in one question. This was a lengthy blog post, probably over 15 pages long, and it seems like this may be the point where Jagex realized just exactly how much work the new prayer book was going to be. Jagex took the information from that community consultation poll and made some tweaks to the prayers in preparation for the Desert Treasure 2 rewards beta, and everything seemed to be going pretty good. They had the prayers ready in preparation for the beta, and players got some hands-on time with them. You can see some of the combat prayers listed here that players got to test out in the beta. After the beta, Jagex stated that they were going to take the feedback into consideration and they were going to come back in May with another beta for players to test out. However, it wouldn't be until June 14th that we saw the second beta come, and that beta would get cut short by a couple days, and Jagex would release this blog to explain why the beta was cut short. In the blog, they mentioned the reasons for cutting the beta short and ultimately their decision to not continue with developing the RUINOUS prayers. It seems like the #1 issue that the team had with RUINOUS prayers was that it was going to introduce immediate power creep, and it was going to affect a lot of end-game content in ways that they couldn't control. They also mentioned that they didn't properly anticipate the volume of work required to deliver on the RUINOUS prayers. They mentioned that they wanted to focus on Desert Treasure 2 without having to compromise any parts of it just to get the prayers in there. And just like that, the development of RUINOUS prayers came to an immediate stop, and they were not released with Desert Treasure 2. After the release of Desert Treasure 2, the team did a Q&A, and they did answer questions about the RUINOUS prayers. Let's see what Mod Ed had to say.
There was these cool shiny prayers sat there, and then suddenly they weren't anymore. It's always going to feel a bit crap. Totally, I totally get that. And as for prayers themselves, like, we shouldn't put something in game if it's going to be crap. We shouldn't even poll something if we know it is not going to work out. Like, and those prayers, they just weren't going to work. So I do think it was the right thing to do to get rid of them. And personally, my hope is that one day some form of Zerosian prayers rear their head again, but it definitely won't be in the form that, you know, we were polling before.
Alright, from what Mod Ed said there, it does not sound like they are going to be repolling RUINOUS prayers or continuing with them. Rather, it seems like the team wants to go in a different approach. And that segues us into video 2 of this 2-part series where we are going to talk about the god alignments. What happened with the god alignments? Why didn't we see the Rites of Balance released with Wild Gothic Sleeps? And what does the future hold for these prayers and god alignments in Old School? Video 2 will be out in a couple days. Alright, I appreciate you guys for the support. If you're new, please subscribe and I will see you in another video.